have an amazing guest and friend of mine, Mike Hogan. Mike and I met, oh gosh, probably 8 or 9 years ago when he was looking at expanding his team into the Wilmington, North Carolina area. Has built a phenomenal business in Virginia, and I'm going to turn it over to him to give us just a rundown of or introduction to himself and share a little bit more about him and his team. So I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk to everybody today. It's always fun getting to hang out with you and talk a little bit about teams, something that's near and dear to my heart. And when you can talk about something as fun as team building, why not? So just a little bit about me. First off, my name is Mike Hogan. I've been doing this now. I think I got licensed in 2004, I believe it was. I was in real estate for a little while before that as a real estate investor, and decided in 2004 to get my license and kind of take it to the next level. And I operated as a single agent from 2004 till 2008, 2009 when the big recession hit. And at that point decided I needed to figure out how I was going to change, because making money flipping houses and investing and selling wasn't so easy from 2008 on. So made a strategic move and launched the Hogan Group. Of course, at the time, the Hogan Group was literally me and an admin. But I had big plans, so I knew that I had to start looking big, even if I wasn't big. So that was kind of the fake it till you make it opportunity for me. And throughout the years, just continue growing. I started off the business as truly an internet lead model. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. My primary office is in Richmond, Virginia. We also have offices in Williamsburg, Virginia, and in Charlottesville, Virginia. And we just we started growing the business off of internet leads, and really just kind of did well with that. I did it myself for 3 or 4 years, and I got to the point where I had too many leads that I couldn't handle it anymore, so I needed to hire some help. And I really sat back, and I think the genesis of growing the team was when I started figuring out the things that I suck at. And unfortunately, the things that I suck at are there's a whole lot more of those than there are things that I'm really, really good at. So I figured, if I'm going to do this, I need to hire somebody to do those things that I suck at. So first thing for me was hiring an admin, somebody could help me with paperwork and all that stuff, because too many times I would wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if I got a foreman or got an inspection done or something. I was always, because I'm disorganized like most real estate agents, so it wasn't my forte to be organized. And so I started growing it with an admin, and then again, as I started getting more and more deals, more and more leads, I needed help with that. So I hired my first buyer's agent. And of course, like all of us, at that time, I was that guy who said, nobody can ever do the business the way I can. Nobody could ever talk to clients the way I can. Nobody can handle deals the way I can. When people call in, they want to talk to Mike Hogan. They don't want to talk to somebody else. And the very first hire that I had proved me right. I hired somebody, he came in, and literally within 2 weeks, I was ready to fire him. He just wasn't doing the things that he needed to be doing. And to tell you just how bad it was, I couldn't even get him to pick up the phone for me so that I could fire him. So I eventually did have to do it via voicemail, because the guy just wouldn't call me, he wouldn't come into the office. So anyway, so I fired him. So I was completely gun shy on hiring anybody else for a very long time. And it took me, I don't know, probably a good 6 or 8 months before I made my next hire. And then a month later, I hired one more. And those two, actually, my second hire, Alicia, is with me today. She's the president of my organization today. The other one, my first hire, was with me up until about 2 years ago, and he left to become the principal broker of another small company. So couldn't blame him at all for taking that opportunity. And really over the time, we've grown from those pretty humble beginnings to where we are today. The last couple of years, we've done just in excess of 1,000 deals a year. This year, we might be slightly below that, depending on what happens with interest rates over the next 6 or 7 months. But we'll be right around 1,000, maybe 950 or so. And we still operate as an internet lead type of team. I think internet leads today are probably about 40% of our overall deals. That's down from previous years, but yeah, and I say it accounts for it, and that's new internet leads. I would say the majority of the rest of my deals still come from old internet leads. So deals that or leads that I received in 2010, 2011, 2012, a lot of those have now come back around 2 or 3 times. And so now we're turning that business as well. But new internet leads that we receive right now accounts for probably 30 to 40% of our business, with the rest of it being deals from our database, and then also referrals and agents having their own sphere deals and so forth. And that's it. That's where we are.
So about how many agents and versus staff do you have on your team?
So right now, we've right-sized our business over the last couple of years. We grew a lot over the last few years, just like everybody. Deals were plentiful. There's a lot of leads. There's a lot of business to be done. So we hired a lot of agents. We hired some staff, and I think probably like everybody, when cash is plentiful, you don't worry about who you're hiring and how you're hiring. You just get them in the door so you can make things work. And I'd say over the last year, we've been in the process of right-sizing our business for where we are today and where I think we'll be over the next couple of years. And 2 years ago, we were at 125 or so agents. I think today we're probably closer to 85 agents, which I feel like is a good number for us. And we're at that point where we'll probably start recruiting heavily again later this year, depending on what happens with the market. And so we have 85 agents across the 3 locations. And then staff for that, we have 3 team leaders that are all responsible for a sub-segment of those agents. We have the president, who's Alicia, who's responsible for managing the team leaders and then managing our operations department. And we'll get into it. I think we talk about operational excellence in a little while. And I'll talk about why I have Alicia managing both sales and operations. So we have that. We have 3 TCs, transaction coordinators. We had 3 transaction coordinators and 1 listing coordinator, but our listing coordinator left last year. She found another opportunity, and we decided not to rehire for that position and split that job up into the 3 transaction coordinator positions. So overall, in terms of true operations, we have the 3 TCs, we have a marketing person, and then we have our sign runner and so forth, who goes out and puts our signs in and does all of our running to all the attorneys' offices and so forth. So that's really about it. So I'd say we have for every agent or every operations person, we have about 5 agents per operations person, maybe 6 agents per operations person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what I want some of you to hear that have these larger teams is 3 TCs for about 1,000 deals.
Honestly, that's probably too much. We could probably do it with 2.
Yeah. And I hear that often. I get that question often, is what is the average capacity of a transaction coordinator? And I feel like we have to look at how do we maximize their bandwidth, and like you said, in a time where we have to control costs, streamlining some of that too.
Just a quick comment on that. A lot of it depends too on what that transaction coordinator is doing. I hear transaction coordinator term used a lot, but what we don't do is define what that transaction coordinator is doing. Like my transaction coordinator does not write contracts. They don't write inspection addendums. They don't do all those things. That's still on the agent. So the transaction coordinator really is, from the time a contract goes, when a house goes under contract, they're handling everything from the time it goes under the contract to the time it closes. And then after closing, we have somebody who handles our post-closing, that takes care of client outreach, working on basically doing all the things Buffini-like that I sucked at as an individual agent. We hire somebody to do all of that for us as well. So that's really what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and just so, and Michael is aware of this, I told everyone that you are going to be open and raw. You're the best candidate for this position, and that they could definitely type questions in the chat bar as things come up as we're discussing different pieces. And that's why we intentionally made this only for our team leaders, so that they can feel comfortable asking those questions of you, and maybe some of you in the audience, to get some different perspectives on building a high performing team and building a high performing team that aids itself to retention. And I know you've done that really well. I know Jenny Weimer's done that really well with the retention piece and then continuing to grow. So thank you for being willing to be our transparent leader today. So
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you. So when you think about these agents with this amount of production, how do you, especially with the internet leads, because I know that's a question people are thinking, how on earth do you have 40% and most likely more from repeat business from these internet leads? What does your accountability look like with your agents for follow-up? How do you build that consistency to see that kind of turn within your agents so that they're not sitting there thinking that internet leads are awful?
Yeah, it's a process. I mean, I'll be honest, we didn't always have great accountability systems. They're basically things that we built out of necessity. When it was just myself in the leads, I was perfectly accountable to myself. I didn't have any issues with it. I say that jokingly because I was probably the worst person ever to do that. I got lucky. I made a bunch of them work, but I let a lot of them fall through the cracks too. Obviously a great CRM is kind of the building block of that. We use Follow Up Boss and have since 2010. But realistically, it's the processes that make sure that the agents are sticking to the CRM, making sure that they're following a process. I mean, we're not big fans of scripts, but we're big fans of formatting calls. So that's what we train to. So we make sure that the agents are asking the right questions, but not really sticking to a script. Early on, I worked for an agent that was a big script guy, and I hated it. If any of you guys remember, before Tom Ferry, it was Mike Ferry, Tom's dad, and Mike Ferry was a huge script guy. And I was just never a fan of it. I never liked talking to this agent or this broker because he sounded robotic. So I wasn't ever a big fan of this. So scripts are not something we use, but again, formatting and training to that formatting. But really, it's our team leaders are responsible for working with the individual agents, making sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. And really, it goes back to our CRM. Follow Up Boss is a place for agents to enter notes and enter status updates and make sure that they're responding to clients. And we've got action plans in place to make sure that they're doing the right things. In fact, a lot of the things that they're supposed to do, we automate. So the system allows us to automate a lot of that. But it also gives our guys a chance to hold them accountable. We go in constantly. It used to be me, and now it's the team leaders that live in that CRM and just watching what their agents are doing. And when we're doing great things, when we're seeing conversion rates are high, and we're seeing that they're following the protocols, then we let them know that. And then when they're not, we put them on a corrective course. So really, it comes down to the team leaders. We have mentors on the team as well, but really the team leaders are the ones who are responsible for holding the agents accountable to where we need to be. And at the end of the day, we're not a company that wants to keep all agents. It's just not how we are. We don't hire everybody who comes to the door. In fact, we probably hire less than 5% of the agents who apply to come work with us. And we don't, we watch them for 90 days, and if they're not doing the right things, we give them every opportunity to improve. Obviously, we're coaching them up every time, but at the end of the day, if they're not doing the right things, then we don't keep them around. I'm a big believer in cutting low-hanging fruit and not letting those people stay around, because if high performers want to work around high performers, and if high performers see you allowing others to continue to be low performers, then they start to question why they're working the way they are.
Yeah, that's great. So we had a couple of questions, and then I have some. So we'll kind of run around the mulberry bush today instead of going in some formal order. So
I'm good with however we want to go with it.
So Allie asks, are your team leaders also in production?
No. Not that they can't produce, but they don't take leads. So we do encourage them, especially when times are slow, because my team leaders are paid off of what their agents do. When times are slow, we do encourage them, hey, jump in the pond, grab some of the old leads, but they're not in the lead flow. It's one thing that I've been pretty strict on, is I don't want my leadership team competing with my agents for the leads.
Yeah, I love that. And next question is, at what point in your production did you make the decision to bring on an admin partner
Um,
or
it was very
continuous
early on.
consecutively? Yeah. How about
Yeah,
consecutively? At what point?
it's yeah, it was again. I mean, it was out of necessity. I mean, consecutively, it's out of necessity. So my first one was when I figured out that I was letting a lot of balls drop. And this is I've told this story to other people in the past, and I think people sometimes don't believe me, but it's true. So early on, when it was just me, I had a whiteboard up in my office, and I know my successes, but I dwell on my failures more than I do my successes. And whenever I would have a deal that didn't work out, I dropped the ball on something or whatever, I would put a tick mark on my whiteboard. And it was, because I wasn't organized, I didn't get back to somebody when I told them that I would, or something, a deal, I missed a deal, or in essence, I missed a paycheck because of something that was 100% within my control that I didn't do. And when you start seeing those tick marks, 8, 9, 10, 15, then you realize that, holy crap, like I've got a serious issue in my business and I need some help. And again, I go back to what I said, like self-reflection, I figured out the things that I'm not good at. And I know that I'm not good with organization. So I had to make sure that if I was going to do this, I had to hire somebody that was good at organization. And guys, this was like 2009, 2010. I didn't have any money to be hiring somebody full time. I'd be perfectly honest. So at that time, there was another agent in my office that her business was down. She needed the help. So I started paying her on a per unit basis to do transaction coordination for me. That worked out fairly well. And as time went on, I needed someone a little more serious. So I hired another person. Her business started taking off, so we kind of split ways. And I hired somebody to come in, and that person didn't work out. And I ended up going through, it was probably 3 transaction coordinators that I went through, or admins, I would say. It was primarily transaction coordination. Probably 3 of them that I went through before I found the one that was going to stay with me though for long term, and she did. She stayed with me for the long term. She was amazing for my business. Honestly, I could not have built my business without her. She had some real flaws. Unfortunately, that's the reason we ended up splitting ways later on. But that worked out really well. But then, so that was out of necessity. But as I hired my second admin, it was the same thing. My first admin was getting busy. I needed her to do other things, take on all the responsibilities. So I needed somebody else. So I eventually ended up with, I had 3 admins on my team before I hired my first agent. And it was all about handling the operation side of it while I was focused. It left me free to focus on the things that I'm good at, and that's selling real estate.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that self-accountability of the tick marks. I mean, what a great, when we think about something we can take away from this, if there are areas where you're losing deals or you're sitting there going, oh, shoot, I should have done that, you get a tick mark on the board because it indicates, okay, there's a gap in my business. And I love that concept. So if you're taking anything away, there's one nugget, and it's something I think I will take away too, Mike. Thanks. Another question was about, on average, how long are agents staying on your team? What are you seeing that turn? I know you said it varies based on the first 90 days if they make it, but then after that.
Sure. After 90 days, I mean, our agents stay on the team probably an average of about 3 years. But I'd say out of the 85 agents that we have on the team right now, 50 of them have been with me for longer than 2 years, and probably 25 of them have been with me longer than 5 years. And my longest has been with me since 2014.
Wow, that's great. That's longevity. So how do you create that environment to encourage them to stay? What is it about the Hogan Group that says, hey, I'm going to stay as an agent on a team, and I know everyone's thinking this, for this amount of time?
Yeah. Um, there's just a lot of components to that, quite honestly. Obviously, leads are a big attractant. People come for the leads. But like, the old adage says, people come for the leads and they stay for the culture. And that's 100% the truth. We make sure that we reward top performers. Top performers get more leads, they have more opportunities. I'm not foolish enough to believe that if I took the leads away from everybody, that everybody would stay with me because it's a great place to work. I'm not dumb. I know that that's it. So we provide opportunities for top performers. I think that's a big part of it. And then after that, there's a lot of other things. I design my offices around my agents. At the end of the day, I want agents in the office because I do feel like agents who come into the office are more productive. Agents who are able to stay at home in their PJs or work from a coffee shop or whatever. I just don't think they're as productive. Not saying that there's not plenty of them out there that are amazing agents that do that. I just think that agents that come in the office, especially younger agents, newer agents, when they can be in the office and hear conversations that are happening and they see older agents, what they're doing, I just think that there is a lot of benefit that comes from that. So we design our offices around our agents. And we have wine on tap in the office and cappuccino machines and all the fun stuff like that. I mean, our office is not set up like a real estate office. It's set up like a startup tech office. Lots of bean bags and games and things like that. But it's, even though people may not take advantage of every one of those things, it's a place where people want to come because we set it up so that it's comfortable for them to come. We don't have offices for agents. None of our agents have offices. We have common space where they can all work and be comfortable. And we've got it set up in groupings where if you want a place that's quiet, we've got a place you can go and for it to be quiet. If you want to be out in the middle of everything, we've got a place for you to do that. You want to sit at the counter where the wine is, because God knows we all like to do that. There's opportunities for that. So there's a lot of different things that go into retaining agents. It's not just one, but it's got to be part of your overall. I hate to use the word because I think it's so overused, but it has to be part of your overall culture, that all of your thought processes are around keeping your agents and retaining them. And I had a conversation this morning. I said to somebody that I was talking to, my clients are my agents. And that is 100% how I think. Everything that I do is about my agents, and their clients are the end consumer. But at the end of the day, I look at them as they are my clients, and what do I need to do to keep them happy?
Yeah, I love that. And so when I'm ready to get back into sales, Mike, I'm your girl. Like I'm show me the cappuccino machine and the wine.
I'll hurry you.
The bean bags, I'm too old. I can't get up and down.
Oh, believe me, I have a hard time. I look like a turtle trying to get out of a beanbag these days, but it's fun anyway.
That's great. So just to set the stage a little bit further, do you sell real estate?
I do still. I don't sell it the way I used to. I work with the people I really want to work with. I mean, at the end of the day, I love selling real estate. Like, it's something that I'm absolutely still passionate about doing. I'd say for the most part, I'm out of production, but I still sell probably 25 deals a year. I have investors that I've been friends with for more than a decade that if I handed them off to somebody, it'd be really weird. I have friends that I don't mind working with, but the difference is now, like, I don't have to sell. I pick and choose the people I want to work with, and I try to only work with one person at a time because I do know my limitations. That if I'm out showing 2 or 3 couples houses on a weekend, first off, I'm not going to be around my family. I don't have the time that I personally want for myself. But I just don't feel like I'm as good of an agent when I'm trying to do too much. So when I work with one person or one couple or one family or whatever, I can give them 100% of my time, and that to me is when I'm the best agent. So yes, I do still sell, not as much as I used to, and I only work with the people that I really really want to.
I love it. I love it. So still active enough in the market to know what's going on. That's how I look at it as a real estate coach too, is if you're not, yeah, if you're not in it, you may not know. And it's good to every now and then, like I've experienced the last week, get some objections fired at you about all of the things that are forthcoming. We've had some additional questions, and I know we will work through those with production and account, what level of production. What I want to start with too here is, where do you go find talent? Let's start there, and then we'll walk through the 90 days, and then we'll walk through the accountability or production levels that are required or not required for your team. So thinking about where you go and find talent, I know you mentioned that you hire less than 5% of the agents that come to you. Tell me about that. Who do you hire? Where do you go to find those, and how do you determine if they're talent?
Yeah, so we do. We're constantly advertising. We do advertising on Indeed and all of those places, and we have a lot of people that come to us because of that. We're at a point now where people know our name well enough too that we have a lot of people that come to us for that. We do pre-licensing classes in our offices, which gives us opportunity to get people that are just coming in the door. So we have those. We compensate our agents to bring people in. We give them a piece of production for, I don't want to say, probably 5 deals. I don't really know, to be perfectly honest, but I know we give them a piece of their production for the first few deals. So they're coming in from lots of different sources. The agent though, I'll tell you, the agent that I like to hire, for my model is I love the agents who've been in the business for 6 months to a year. They've been around long enough to know how to write a contract, how to open a lockbox. I'm not having to teach somebody on those things. But they've also been in it long enough to realize just how freaking hard real estate actually is. Because new agents get into real estate and, all they know is what they see on, Selling Sunset or whatever. Real estate looks so darn easy when you're taking the classes. It's like, all right, I'm going to take my class, I'm going to hang my license with somebody, and all of a sudden, all this business is going to start rushing in. And everybody on this group here, I mean, looking through it, you guys all know that that's not the way it happens. So, I like those people that realize just how hard real estate is to get started, because those are the people, when they come to me and I give them a lead and they get somebody on the phone that is genuinely interested in buying real estate, they treasure that lead. Like they have, I mean, they understand how difficult it is to get that person on the phone. So they treasure having that lead. Whereas new agents that I hire, and don't get me wrong, we've hired some new agents that turned out to be amazing. It just depends on the person, obviously. But new agents come in, I just don't think they really understand how good they have it sometimes when I'm putting 10 or 15 opportunities in their inbox every month. Sometimes I question if they really understand the value of those. I mean, they know how much I pay for them or whatever, but sometimes I question whether they realize just how hard it is to go out and generate that business if I'm not giving you that lead. So I'd say our failure rate with newer agents is a lot higher than it is with agents who've been in the business for 6 months plus.
That's great. And I love that, putting the word out there through your agents, through Indeed. I mean, all the different channels, the social channels, and as a team of your size at 85 agents and 3 markets, seems to be probably more of an attractor than some of our teams who are 5, 7, 10 agents deep and then still out there trying to recruit. Do you feel like, because I know I heard you say at the start that you're going to look to potentially increase the recruiting as we roll through the year, and that it's smart because we're seeing sales down, so we got to increase numbers. What do you see as first plan of attack for increasing those recruiting numbers?
For us, we've really increased our social media presence. We've spent a lot, we've invested a lot into our social media presence, and we've always had a good social media presence, but now we've been a lot more intentional about what we're doing. We're a lot more intentional about our messaging, even though our messaging isn't direct, hey, come work for the Hogan Group. It is intentional around the things that we're putting out there just naturally attracts people. And we've gotten a lot more people who have reached out from us just from our social media than really anything else. And those people are the people that, they see us, they see the culture before they even hear about the leads. So that's one way that we've started doing it. And in other ways, again, it's just ramping up. When I'm ready to ramp it up, I start doing more advertising in the places that I've always advertised, Indeed and LinkedIn and so forth. But really, social media is our massive push for that going forward.
Great. Thank you for sharing. All right. So first 90 days, we've got this agent that's been in the industry 8 months, and they are landing on your plate to come and win the real estate market. What are those accountability metrics at a 30,000 foot view? What are those accountability metrics that you put in place that they either stay or they go?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, like, it's a 90-day term, but sometimes I say I know in the first 2 weeks whether somebody's going to make it or not. I have some that surprise me, but realistically, I think we know pretty quickly, and that is, again, from more of a qualitative standpoint, is the person coming into the office. Are they asking the right questions? Are they asking questions at all? Those types of things are things that we look at almost immediately just to see what they're doing. From there, it's phone calls. Before they're able to take leads, we put them in a pond. We give them, they have to engage with 200 people out of our pond, which is essentially our database of old leads. We've got, I don't know, 250,000 leads in our database. And so we want them going in there and talking to those guys. And the purpose behind that is twofold. One is to toughen them up a little bit because there's nothing like getting hung up on people that haven't wanted to buy real estate for 8 years. So it's a little bit of it's that, but a little bit of it is just a test for us to see, are they going to do it? Are they making the calls? Are they doing the things that they're supposed to be doing? And then, so I'd say that's first and foremost. And then from there, as we start to give them leads, they're assigned to a mentor, and the mentor will work with them on making sure that they're saying the right things and doing the right things. Obviously, they go through our training and so forth. That's all happens in the first week to 2 weeks. But really from there, it's around number of phone calls that they're making. It's around how many times they're showing houses. I mean, if any of you guys in here are on Zillow Flex, the accountability that Zillow Flex puts you through is kind of the same thing that we do with our agents, which is basically we want to see how many contacts they're making. So we look at their contact rate, we look at their show rate, how many houses are they out showing, so how many people they talk to, how many houses are they showing, how many contracts are they writing. Because we know with our business in the first 90 days, somebody should have one house under contract. And if not to say that we'll immediately fire them if they don't have a house under contract in 90 days. If they're doing the right things, we give them more time. But it's rare. It's a rarity that we have a successful agent on our team that didn't have a house under contract in the first 90 days. So we're really looking for somebody to do that. And again, we give grace where grace is needed. If we feel like that they're doing the right things and it's just a rough time in the market, like right now, we have to be a little less stringent on our metrics when there's no houses to sell and interest rates are at 7.5%. I mean, it's a little bit different of a world out there for us right now.
Love it. So here's a question with the splits, because and regardless of what commission percentage they charge, we don't care. Splits, how do you structure the splits as they come in? And when you start thinking of your higher performers, how do you create incentives for them to stay as well from a compensation standpoint?
Yeah. So first off, our company has a cap. So all of our agents are on caps. They pay the caps on their personal deals and any deals that come from the team. So it's a $15,000 cap that they're all on. So keep that in mind for just a few minutes. But really, so our splits are based on the source of the lead, and we have a couple of different split packages, just the way it's set up. But agents on the team that have sphere deals, they're all on a 80-20 on those. They keep 80, we take 20. Just like they would get if they were to go to a normal broker or a traditional broker. And the reason that we do that, I know many teams do 50-50 for those. For us, at the end of the day, the guys on our team don't do a ton of sphere deals, but we want to encourage them to do them. And it also eliminates a reason for them to leave, because a lot of times what we see is agents say, if they're taking 50% of my sphere deals and I'm actually getting some sphere deals now, or they think in their head that they're going to be getting sphere deals, they start thinking about leaving and going somewhere where they can be on an 80-20 or 90-10 or something like that. So we remove that and we just give them the 80-20 on the sphere deals up front. So that just is not even something we even have to worry about. And then from there, it's based on the lead source. Zillow, we're on Zillow Flex, so it's a little bit different because they have either 35 or 40% referral fee on those. So we have a split after the referral fee. We're on I think at this point, we're now on a 50-50. We were on a 40-60 with the agents. So our agents who were with us when we switched over to Flex, we gave them a 60%, we took 40%. And the purpose behind that, I know some people are probably cringing at the thought of that, but the reason that we did that was we try to keep our agents as whole as possible when we switched to Flex, because prior to Flex, I was the one that had all of the financial risk because I was paying everything up front for our Zillow leads. When we switched to Flex, now the agents and I were sharing that risk. And so I didn't want to take money out of their mouth, even though my personal risk was being decreased because I was no longer paying that huge bill up front. I wanted to keep them as whole as possible. So it was a 60-40. Over time, we've been able to get that back down to more of a 50-50 split. So we're 50-50 on Flex, and then on Realtor.com leads, we're 50-50 on those. And then we have all kinds of other stuff that comes in. Generally speaking, if it comes from the team, it's a 50-50 split. And if it comes from their sphere, it's an 80-20. Now, for the agents who have been on the team for a while, we wanted to come up with a way to recognize them and to essentially, keep them around, because as agents have been here for 3, 4, 5 years, they've done a bunch of business. What we don't want them thinking is, okay, I need to leave the team in order to get something else. Because at that point, I think most agents get to the point where they want to make the same amount of money, but they don't want to work as hard. So we try to make it a little bit easier for them to do that. So we created what we call THG Elite, which is basically, it's a group that there's 3 criteria for, or we used to be 3 criteria. Now I think we're down to 2 criteria. But originally you had to be on the team for 3 years, 3 years or more. You had to have done at least 100 million in, no, I'm sorry, you had to do at least 30 million in transaction volume or have done 100 deals. And so those were our 3 criteria. And what we found is we actually eliminated the time on the team metric. So no longer do you have to be on the team for 3 years, because what we were finding is we had guys that were on the team for under 2 years that were hitting those metrics, and we didn't feel like that it was fair to make those guys wait until they've been there for 3 years to get that. So when they get that, what they get is they get a really cool hat that says THG Elite, because, well, I'm sorry, it's a cap, because we give them a cap because we eliminate their cap. So they get a THG Elite cap if they lose their cap to the team. And we give them a little bit of a bump on their split. So instead of 50%, they're getting 55% and so forth. So we give them a little bit more. We take away the cap that they had to pay, and they're just treated a little bit different. And they're also given opportunities, not just the elite. This is going to be for all of our top agents, but they're given opportunities whenever we're trying something new on the team, whether it's a new lead source or something else. Like right now, we're testing out some new AI that will help with our upfront lead qualification. I want my group of people on that team that I know that I don't have to worry about whether there's any variance for my agents. So I put my top agents on that. So those agents also get special opportunities like that, which gives them the opportunity to earn more and so forth.
That's great. So is there a minimum standard of production for the ability to stay on your team? And then I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the team leaders that hold each of these agents accountable?
So yes, there's a minimum. Again, with the market and the condition it's in, we've had to be a little bit more flexible with that. Previous to that, it was 24. We wanted 24 deals per year per agent. With the number of leads that we provide, 24 should be the minimum. We're at 12 right now, only because things are just a little bit different in the market. And I've got many agents that are at that 17 and 18 mark, and they're great people, they're great agents, they're people that I want to be in business with. But because of interest rates and lack of inventory and so forth, they're writing 6 times as many contracts as they are deals and contracts. So we give a little grace when business is a little bit different. But yeah, right now 12 is what we're a minimum that we want. And I don't think we have any agents that are under that.
Under that. So then I had a question of how are you tracking production? Are you using a specific system to track for all your agents?
So we have a multitude of spreadsheets, as you can imagine. We don't use a specific system for it. There's a lot of different systems out there. We use what works for us. And that is truly, we've got a master sheet that tracks all of our production, keeps track of production at all the different offices. We break it out by where the closings are coming from. So we know those metrics, so to just click on it. We know what percentage are coming from Zillow, what percentage are coming from Realtor.com, what percentage are coming from any particular client, like a large investor, that type of thing. So really, no, it's nothing. It's nothing special. There's a lot of systems out there that do what we do, but honestly, we've been doing it for so long and it works really well. It's not something that we need to worry about buying something different.
Yeah, that's great. I'm asking you one more question and let the audience know that we're going to transition more to operational excellence here in just a second. So if you have any specific agent related questions that we haven't covered, go ahead and throw those in the chat box and I'll either catch them now or we'll catch them at the end. But for my question, additionally with your agents for training, continual training or continual opportunities to learn and grow, what specific types of things are you doing with your team? Are you sending them out? Do they have coaches? What does that look like? 'Cause that is a big question we get for continual personal and professional growth.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of coaches. We have not gone that route. Most of our training is done in-house. So of course, we have our new agent training that we do when people first come in. And if we have agents that are having issues, we'll send them back through certain components of that new agent training. Like the listing side of it or whatever. Well, we have agents who have been here for a couple of years that will go through our new agent training again, just to brush up on some of the things that we're doing differently today. But constantly every month we have multiple trainings throughout the month. We have formal trainings, and each team leader is responsible for doing individual trainings with their agents, especially ones that aren't hitting the numbers that they're supposed to be. But then we also do more like informal roundtable trainings, which is more of a discussion than somebody standing in front of a room going through slides. It's really we pick a topic, and most of the time it's one of our agents that's leading it. So it might be somebody we have questions for people they want to learn more about land transactions. So we'll have a round table about land transactions, and we have a couple of agents who have done a ton of land, and they want the opportunity to learn. So we have them running that, and it's really of them talking about land and asking and answering questions and so forth. So we're constantly doing trainings, both formal and informal trainings. And obviously, it doesn't stop with just with just new agent training.
Yeah, well, I know a great coach who has an amazing coaching company. If you have any need for your agents, you just reach out to
So
me.
I hear, I love it.
And Ben Mathis is joining us again. He was our speaker last time for land mergers and acquisitions, so I'm sure he can help you with the consulting there. So I have to plug everyone. All right, so transitioning to operational excellence. I know you started to touch on Alicia and the role that she plays and how she keeps all things in order. So would love for you to dive into pieces around her business, how you manage your operations across three or four different locations, and how all of that is streamlined.
Yeah. So the way I had the business set up originally, I had Alicia running sales, and then I had somebody in her equivalent managing operations, and that was the way that from my days in corporate America, that's essentially how the business was run. But the problem that I was running into, and it's kind of funny because I also saw this problem at the corporate level, is operations and sales never agree with each other. There's always some headbutting when it comes to operations and sales. So one of the changes that I made fairly early on is when I made the decision to eliminate the director of operations, that's when I made Alicia our president, and she was now responsible for both sales and operations. So now if there's an issue, if operations has an issue with something to do with sales, they're talking to the same person. So she's the one that makes the decision or listens to both sides and so forth. So it's less headbutting, and quite honestly, the headbutting is now off of my plate, which is what I was looking for. And it's now on Alicia, and Alicia is the one who, since she manages both, she's in a unique position to make changes that we need to make and to take advantage of whatever the issue is.
Sure. Are there specific systems that she's running off of for communication amongst the teams or with the team leaders?
No, not really. I mean, so Facebook has been our friend. We've had a Facebook group for the team forever. We have a Facebook group for each individual team. And then she also has one just for her and her team leaders where she's communicating with them. But our Facebook group is our main communication channel with the agents. They all know that if somebody needs to give up their lead day, they'll go on and post that lead day. It is our main communication channel. That's what she's using to communicate. Now, that being said, obviously, operational type things, it's more of a phone call for her or an individual meeting or whatever. But really, Facebook is our main communication tool for the team.
Okay, great. So as you've been scaling up to 1,000 or right around or over 1,000 units, what are some different challenges that you face? Where have you layered in additional items for scale, policies, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I would say obviously the biggest issue with scaling, especially with multiple locations, is people. Um, that's probably if there's anything at all that keeps me up at night, it's making sure that I have enough leadership bench strength in my company. Because the one thing that will keep me from launching another location is not having a person to manage that location. Because if I don't have somebody else managing it, it means it's me, and that's more like a job. I don't want to do that. So really, I'd say that's probably the thing that I have had to focus on more than anything else is developing bench strength. And one of the ways we've done that, I mentioned earlier the mentor program. Our mentor program was set up specifically so that we can train future leaders for the company, whether they're going to be people who are going to be, eventually become team leaders, or maybe they're going to eventually manage a branch for us, or maybe they're going to eventually go into a complete separate business. When I started our title company, one of my agents who had been a mentor and then become a team leader, he was also managing my expansion efforts when I was with KW in Wilmington. He actually is now the CEO of my title company. So now I've got this great, it's this great relationship because he was an agent and now he's in that role. So for me, it's always been about developing that bench strength, but that's what we use the mentor program for. So we offer individuals to be in the mentor program that we think have the aptitude or the ability to be a leader at some point. And we just want to see how they operate. And really, it just comes from watching. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a believer that leaders aren't given leadership positions, they earn leadership positions. And we like to see who people in the office respect. Who do they go to with questions when they have a question they need to ask? And those are the people we choose to become mentors. And those people are paid a percentage of their mentees' commissions for 10 deals. And then, but those are the people that we're constantly given opportunities to leadership opportunities to prove themselves and move. So I would say people has been the biggest issue. I mean, at the end of the day, processes are pretty, that part's pretty easy because you just replicate what you did before. But leadership is always the hardest part of it. Getting leads in new places, it's pretty simple. Setting up social media in a new place, pretty simple. All those things are very scalable, very easily. Again, the one thing that's not scalable and it takes a little bit more time to deal with is the people side of it.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing too is it's more of a hire from within, have them earn the right to obtain a leadership position in your world versus having to always go outside and base it off of a resume and the interview process.
Outside once for a key position, and I wish that I hadn't. Almost immediately regretted it after I did it. I just think there's something to agent buy-in. I think agents buy into leaders that they respect and they see that came from a world where they knew what they were doing. When I put Alicia into the position she's in, Alicia was my top agent. And I will tell you, it wasn't an easy decision taking her out of production because she was somebody who was constantly doing 40 or 50 deals a year for me. To take that person out of production, I'm not going to lie, it was a little scary. But when the rest of the team saw her, she had moved into a mentor position and then eventually into a full-time team leader position. People knew that she knew what the heck she was doing. She was the one that they would go to with questions anyway. So they naturally looked at her as a leader, even way before I gave her the title of leader. And that's what I'm looking for from everybody else. I want people to look at them as a leader, even though they may not have that title yet.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Well, you mentioned something with the title. So core services, what percentage of your business is through core services? What core services are you set up with to basically add additional value to your team?
Yeah, that's a constantly evolving question. I'll be perfectly honest. So title was easy for us. I know in North Carolina, it's a little bit different, but for us, buyer chooses title. A lot of my friends in Florida, seller chooses title. I realize that, but at where we are, buyer chooses title, and settlement companies can close deals, and title insurance is a very lucrative business for us. So I would say title is the first and foremost. We actually we were able to our capture rate. I was trying to think of the word. Our capture rate on title is at 80%, which is stunning when I talk to my friends out there, especially those that are in traditional brokerages, what their capture rates are, and it's usually in the neighborhood of about 30% is a good capture rate. For us to get 80%, I feel very fortunate with. But my title company is set up very much like my brokerage. I have a couple of people there are former agents, so they understand what the agents are going through. Their offices are set up very similar and so forth, and it's all the same culture. When I have my meetings with my leaders and my executive leadership team, it is with Alicia and Ben. They're the two that come in, and so whenever there's an issue, there's a title issue. Alicia and Ben already have that great relationship that they can call each other and get it squared away. And I never have to get involved. They take care of between the two of them, and I don't have to be involved. So title first and foremost is the big one for us. Insurance is one that I've always really wanted. We launched an insurance franchise 2 years ago, and just really had a hard time with it, only because I think we chose the wrong partner to franchise with. I asked all the right questions when buying a franchise, and that is, can this be done as an executive model, or is this really somebody that is this a more like an owner operator type of model where do you make money? And the constant answers I was getting is yes, yes, yes. This is an executive model. There's plenty of skin on the bone, so forth and so forth. And after we launched, we just saw that that really wasn't the case. There was enough money there if we wanted to pay our producer, but then me and the partners, and from me and my partners were Alicia and Ben. I brought them in on that business. And so that really did work out for us, but that's one that I would like to figure out how to make work. I think insurance is is an easy one, and then mortgage obviously is the other big one that's out there. We have purposely chosen not to launch a mortgage company. We've gone down the path a couple of times of seriously considering it. But my mortgage partner, they're on a lead sharing basis because we've got Zillow and Realtor.com and all these other lead sources. We're able to bring them in on a lead sharing basis, and what I get from them right now is about equivalent to what I would net on a mortgage company if I wanted to launch a mortgage company. So we purposely chosen not to go that route. Not to say that that won't happen. In fact, in my head, if worst case scenario happens with the commission lawsuits, assume that there's a complete decoupling, launching a mortgage company might actually be one of the answers to that issue and how we're going to deal with that. So that's one that is constantly on the back burner, but it's definitely simmering.
Yeah. Are you doing anything with property management?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I forgot to mention that we actually just launched our property management company. It was again out of necessity. My personal rental portfolio had grown to a point where I just personally couldn't do it anymore. So I hired somebody to do that, and when I hired them to do that, I was thinking to myself, well, I might as well make this a profit center. So we're now right at the point where we're launching to take on outside business. For the last 6 months, it's just been about developing the processes, making sure that everything is in place, and testing it out on my business and my tenants, so that when we bring on outside people, that we're not testing it on them. So we're getting all of that stuff set up, and we feel pretty good about where we are right now. So we're just starting to take on some outside business. Again, it's more of a long-term play. It's margins in property management aren't huge. But I look at property management almost like another platform company. Like my brokerage is a platform company that I can build businesses around. My property management company, I look at that the same way. Although that can be a company that surrounds my brokerage, the property management company also has the ability to be its own platform company, because from there you can start handyman company, and you can start having plumbers and electricians and all kinds of businesses that you can build around property management that makes property management a lot more profitable. So that's in my head. Like if somebody asked me today, Mike, what do you do in your business? You're the CEO of the Hogan Group, but what do you do? Honestly, I do nothing with the brokerage. I don't deal with any of the day-to-day stuff. I come in once a week. I look at the financials. I have a meeting with my executive team to make sure that I know what's going on. I sell a little bit, but realistically, where my head is on what's going to happen over the next 1 to 3 years. And that's where I'm focusing. So I'm thinking about new businesses that we need to start, what we need to do to make sure that our agents are ready for all the changes that are going to happen over the next 6 months to a year. And then all the potential changes that might happen during that time as well. So that's where my headspace is. But so yes, creating other companies to generate more value is definitely what I'm thinking about right now.
That's great. And so there's a comment in here, and I'll connect you to. So Matt Tandy has managed over about 5,000 doors. He is a property manager that I work with on the sales side. And next month for our master class, I'm going to spoil it. We have Mike Lutensack, who has a large property management company out of the Pennsylvania Dilbout area, and he's going to come talk about growing the property management side as well. And he actually was just acquired. So talking about setting that up to become something that's valuable. And again, like you said, compartmentalizing some of those different pieces with maintenance, leasing, vehicles, all the different pieces that come along with that. So you won't want to miss that. Sticking just for another couple of minutes with a couple of operational questions, and then I do want to transition to how you're looking at the future of real estate with some of the different changes. When you think about your budget for what you're spending on leads, I know that's a heavy ticket item on your profit and loss statement. How do you allocate your budget? What are you doing to reduce costs now that things are changing? That sort of thing. I know we talked a little bit about that before this, so I'd love for you to share your insights on that piece.
Yeah, budgeting has been something that's something that I've kept on my plate, only because I like to be in control of my money at the end of the day. And so when cash is plentiful, again, go back to 21, 22, even 23 in some cases. Cash is pretty plentiful. It's amazing how many subscriptions you sign up for, how many new products you sign up for that you end up just not using, and then you completely forget that you're paying for. So I'd say the first thing I started doing when we started to see a shift in the market was to sit down, go through where I'm spending money, and it's pretty easy to do. Just you can go through your checking account and figure out where the money is, and your P&Ls. I just started looking at things that I was spending money on that just wasn't adding to the business, essentially. And there was a lot of them. I've probably saved, I don't know, in the neighborhood of $5 to $8 a month just by doing that. From there, where my head is right now is I don't cut lead expenses. In fact, I'm actually spending more in the lead department today than I was probably 2 years ago. Only because I have always found that when everybody else decides to stop buying leads is when I need to start buying them, because I get the best deals and can lock them down for a longer term. So I'd say I'm spending more money on leads right now, but I'm spending money in places that directly affect my business. Another thing that I've done recently in terms of cutting is we actually had a second office in the Richmond market that we opened up not too long ago. And we started looking at the expenses of that, and it was an expense that didn't make sense, primarily because I figured out that the agents that were working out of that office actually lived closer to my other office. And so, but we were putting them in there just to have bodies in there, which didn't make any sense. So we decided to, pretty quickly close that office, which is saving us some money. The operational piece of it we're saving, and then we've actually subleased half of the space, and probably we'll have the other half of the space subleased here very quickly. So we're actually be making a little bit of money on our sublease. So it's just looking at things that aren't adding to the bottom line. And in this case, one office in the Richmond market was really all I needed. I had two because I thought that there would be some growth there, and it just didn't happen. It was bad timing more than anything else. Bad decision where to put it to. That's on me. And then the other thing that right now we started spending a lot of money on branding over the last few years. So that, we're the sponsor of a local concert series. We've got, our name up on the Sky Suite, and it's awesome. We get a lot of great press out of it. And plus I get to go to concerts all year long, which is awesome. And we have but we also utilize that because we get 50 tickets for every concert. So instead of we transitioned from doing client events to doing client events essentially all year. I'm gonna credit Jenny Waymer. I don't know if she's still on or if she jumped off.
She is.
But
Yeah,
Jenny,
she's there.
okay, so Jenny gave me a great idea a few years ago. She has a Facebook group for her past clients called Friends with Benefits. And I absolutely loved it. I took that and ran with it. She 100% gave me permission to do it. In fact, I'm actually in her Facebook group so that I see the things that she does, and she's an hour so she can see what we do. But we created this book to stay in touch with our past clients. And whenever concert season comes around, we ask our past clients, what concerts do you guys want to go to? So we make sure that we're giving them opportunities to go to concerts. We're sponsors of VCU basketball, D1 basketball here in town. So we give tickets out to basketball games in our Charlottesville. We're sponsors of UVA athletics. So we send them to baseball games and football games and basketball games and stuff like that. So it's basically like a year-long client event party. So we do some of that for those things. But then there's other branding things that we do that we don't get a lot of it, a lot of trackable sales of, whether it be billboards or things like that. Things that are really hard sometimes to really track where your business is coming from, because we never got people who would call from our billboards, but and my argument is always that if people see you in enough places and then they are deciding that they need a real estate agent, that they're going to look and see, okay, I recognize that logo. I'll call those guys because I've seen this enough times. But so we're looking at some of our branding stuff, because at the end of the day, branding is one of those things that's very hard to quantify what it adds to the bottom line. And so we're looking hard at that and seeing if that makes sense. We will not cut lead expenses again. We've actually increased that, and we'll probably continue to increase that as we start to grow our agent count again. But I'd say that's the biggest thing. So making sure you're cutting out things that you just don't need, subscriptions and so forth. Bigger things like, in my case, a full office we cut, things like that. So I would just make sure that you're looking at those types of things and do it with a fine-tooth scalpel. I mean, literally go through, cut a bunch of stuff, and then go back through a second time and cut even more. You'd really be surprised how much you can cut out of your budget. And at the end of the day, if you're cutting $5,000 out of your budget, or even, if you're an individual agent, you cut out 1,000, that's literally that much that goes directly to your bottom line. And, it's amazing how much that'll affect your business.
Yeah, and I love how you're emphasizing too, without saying it directly, is that return on investment. So you see a direct return on investment from client events, and so you took it to a different levels to be able to offer those at really on their own pace, right? It's not you have to show up on this Saturday for the balloon launch or whatever it is that you're offering, and hire the band to come offer the music. You're offering it all year long just through your sponsorship, so your ROI is really high there. And so I think that's something huge to take away there. The other thing too, we see highest costs are, like you said, overhead with space, and then staff. So are you making any changes with your staff?
I mentioned earlier that we had a listing coordinator that left last year, and we just didn't replace that position. Um, you know, we run pretty lean as it is. We don't have a lot of software costs. We don't have a lot of people costs. I mean, I say we don't have a lot of people costs. My salaries are pretty high, but I still think we run fairly lean. Now, that being said, we do have 3 TCs. If business doesn't, if we don't see business pick up in the second half of the year, I think we'll be able to finish out. I think we'll be able to run our business with 2 TCs instead of 3. So that is definitely something that we're considering, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, if business doesn't improve, there's no reason to have that third person on. So there's a chance that will be a position, but I am actually in the mindset that as we move into the second half of the year, business, while it may not increase dramatically, I think it's going to at least stay steady and probably increase slightly towards the second half of the year.
I think that's a great segue for the next 7 to 10 minutes on what the future landscape of the real estate industry is. And so would love be curious in hearing what changes you all have made, what be it in presentations, conversations, objection handling, your approach, any of that with what we could see here in the next, for us, August 16th is the date here in North Carolina. So in the next couple of months.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's hard to make a lot of changes right now because I think a lot of the things that we do are going to have to be reactionary. In Virginia, we've had to sign buyer brokerage agreements, I think, for like 7 years now. So that's not really a change for us. But one thing that will be a change possibly is when we had to get buyer brokerage, when it became law for us to sign a buyer brokerage agreement, it became law that you had to sign it before the first substantive conversation with the person before showing them a house. The problem was nobody did it. So if I was meeting a client at a house, especially like a Zillow lead, if I would meet them at a house and I'm meeting them for the first time at the house and I shove a piece of paper in front of them and tell them that, hey, it's a law, you have to sign this. Obviously we don't say it quite like that, but they'll say, no, that's okay. I'll just go to somebody else because somebody else won't require me to sign that. And they're right. There are other people who wouldn't require them to sign it. So eventually it got to the point where nobody actually got the buyer brokerage agreement signed on the first meeting. Everybody gets it signed when you sign the purchase agreement. So that's why I say, some of the changes I think are going to have to be reactionary because we're going to have to react to what the realities are in the market of how things are actually going to go down. I know what's in the settlement. I know what the DOJ wants and so forth, but some of what we do is still going to be reactionary to what happens in reality. So right now, what we're doing is actually in May, we just started up our trainings for the agents on a couple of things. One, talking to our clients about commissions. We're starting to do trainings on how to deal with sellers and broaching that conversation with them. And then also with buyers in case that happens. And I'll get into that in just a minute, what I think is going to happen there. But, we're doing that training now. And then we're also putting together materials for the agents. We've always had listing booklets. Now what we're putting together are buyer booklets that will help them to essentially explain what the value of working with the buyer's agent is, why it makes sense for somebody to pay a buyer's agent and so forth. So we're getting those materials in place. We're doing that training for that now. That being said, I look at the future, the next 6 months to a year from two different terms. I do what I think is probably going to happen, but then I also look at worst case scenario. And what I think is probably going to happen is if everything is going the way it looks like it is, there is still a buyer compensation avenue that will come from the seller, whether it's done through the closing costs or not closing costs, but can't think of the word I'm trying to say. Seller concessions. The seller could do that, or whether it's done through buyers being able to finance it or whatever. I think there will likely be an avenue for buyers to be compensated by the seller going forward. Now, that's what I think is probably best case scenario out of what we're looking at. Worst case scenario out of what we're looking at, and is probably the part that keeps me up at night more so than the best case, and that is if the DOJ intervenes and says, nope, we don't want sellers to be able to pay buyers agents at all, and makes it illegal for that. And that's probably, in my head, that's absolute worst case scenario. And that is probably consuming, if not more, 50% of my headspace these days, and figuring out how my business will have to change if that happens, because we're an internet lead company. Internet lead companies typically tend to be buyer focused. We're no different. Probably, I don't know, 60%, 70% of our deals are buyers. So, worst case scenario is very detrimental to my business. So that's where my head is now, is figuring that out. I can say that I don't think that'll happen, but it's the DOJ. I mean, we could have an announcement in an hour from now that the DOJ has decided that they're not going to allow the settlement and they don't want commissions to be paid by the seller. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm under the assumption right now that it's going to be somewhat business as usual there's going to be some changes. My agents are going to have to call to figure out what the commission is, or we're going to have to figure out some method of figuring out what the commission is if there's a commission. But if that's the worst of the changes that we have to deal with, at the end of the day, it's not that bad. I mean, commercial agents have been doing it for years. But again, worst case scenario is what's keeping me up at night right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if we plan for the worst case scenario, we'll do great. Because we'll be even more prepared. I know Adam Nicholas on our call today, he's commercial agent. And I told him, I've been telling all the agents I speak with, if you want to know how to navigate this, call the best commercial agent in your board. Talk to them about how they have that conversation and how it gets done. Because this is not a new song. This is an old song for them.
It's really not.
So,
it's really not.
Yeah. And again, I think too, when you look at how do we portray value, I think looking through the lens of what do we have that buyers can't get, such that they are willing to sign that agency. We all offer 5-star customer service and communication out the wazoo, whether we do it or not. But again, it's like looking at your business to figure out what is it that you offer that perhaps others don't offer. So value is huge. So with your last couple of minutes, and if you would like to ask Mike a question, I do see one question in here, but if you'd like to ask Mike a question, throw it in the chat box. But one last thought that you would have, Mike, that you'd like to share on anything, teams, upcoming market, or otherwise.
I would say I'm still a believer in the team model. I do tell people quite often that if I had to rebuild my team today the way I built it originally, I don't think I could. Because that forum has changed so much. Lead costs have gone up tremendously. In 2010, I had a 10x ROI on internet leads. Like any idiot could have done it and made money with it. Most didn't, because Zillow was the big bad Zillow and nobody wanted to work with them. We did, and we made a lot of money with it because of it. But ROIs today aren't 10x. They're not even close to 10x. So, I'm a big believer in the team model. I think at the end of the day, you have to provide value to the agents that you're bringing on, whether it's in the form of leads or whether it's in the form of training them how you do business or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, if you provide value, you have a way of providing value to agents that work with you. And I do think the team model is the absolute most profitable model in real estate. I think traditional brokerages are going to continue to have a difficult time with margin compression. They're going to feel it even more than teams will, because broker agents want higher and higher splits and more technology. And if you're having to invest in technology, it makes it hard to do when you've got compressing commissions. So I think traditional brokers are going to continue to struggle, and we'll probably see more consolidation there. But I'm a believer that the team model is the most profitable model in real estate and will continue to be so.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree with you 100%. I think there's some opportunities for acquisitions and mergers with even some of these other independent who started out as brokerages into team models and that sort of thing. So Mike, if they're in your area and want to talk to you, they can certainly give you a call. And Matt had asked the top 3 things contributing to your success and the growth of your companies. And what I heard you say were leads, training, and opportunity for your. I appreciate your time.
Always love being here talking to you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, great. All right, you guys have a successful day, and I look forward to seeing you next month.